Brandon, who's going first, Lively or Whitehead tonight?
It's going to be Lively. It's not going to be close, fellas. I wouldn't be surprised if Lively ends up going in the top 10. That's how hot he's been lately.
Wow. I mean, it makes sense to me. You see the defensive abilities, and I'm sure teams are salivating the opportunity to try and coach him up on the offensive end. But going to Dariq Whitehead really quick, though, Brandon, my thing is the way we saw him fall this year because of the injuries. I just don't know if teams think that Whitehead will ever be the guy who we saw in high school.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is for starters, like even though he is one of the youngest players in the draft, I don't think it's inconceivable to think that this rookie year is essentially going to be a redshirt year for him at the next level, obviously. Having the second procedure done so recently, the fact that it was a fifth metatarsal, Panthers fans are very familiar with how some of those foot injuries can go.
Yeah.
They linger, they're troublesome. So, I think that is certainly hurting him in one respect. The other thing is, like, he had this pedigree coming out of high school, and the player that we saw at Duke was just a completely different player. I mean, if you look at, if you took away Dariq Whitehead's name off of the tape, it's not even the same guy. So I do think that the injuries are obviously the biggest part of this. If he can get back to what he looked like he was in high school, then you're talking about a late first-round steal. But, as is the case with injuries, you never really know how they're going to shake out.
Brandon Marks, The Athletic, joining us here on the Heister Automotive Hotline here on 99.9 The Fan. Paul Ihander and Louis Fernandez with you. And Brandon, I remember watching Dariq. In the one game, I thought he flashed the most potential, and I think that's the word that's going to be used about him when whoever picks him, and everyone's like linking him to the Nets because of the whole surgery, the surgeon linking and things like that. But I remember the one game that I saw him play, and Lively had a great game. It was against Maryland Eastern Shore of all teams, and Whitehead he had spring in his step, and you're talking about a guy, again, if you pulled the name off the back, you're like, wow, this guy's coming out of nowhere. He threw one of those call your mom dunks down where, like, I would have literally called my mom and said, did you just see that kind of thing? And he just made things look effortless. So when he's healthy, we talk about potential with him. But again, you're looking at a guy 6'7", 6'8", right? Kind of fits everybody's bill. Is there really, truly a right fit for him with a team in the NBA right now? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think you got to look at his timeline, right? So, he's not a guy that I think teams are expecting to come in and compete to start from day one. Just given the severity of the foot injury, that's not really feasible to me. I think it's something where, so if you're talking about a team that's bringing him on, it's a team that can afford to, quote unquote, stash him for a little while. Let him get healthy, let him develop, let him try and get some of the athleticism back. It's funny you mentioned that Maryland Eastern Shore game. I totally agree with you. The game that I thought was maybe as impressive as any was actually the Oral Roberts game in the NCAA tournament. He showed some of those. He was able to hit like movement three-pointers, was able to get a couple of defensive rebounds, had a steal, started to look like he was getting a little bit of pop back. The other part of this that I think he probably is not getting enough credit for, and something that I think he deserves more for, is the fact that this was a top 5 recruit coming out of high school, and after he had that injury at Virginia Tech that cost him about 4 more games, he was coming off the bench and, not really playing more than 20 minutes a game, 15, 20 minutes a game. That's a hard mental shift as well. So, I think he matured a lot emotionally this year, had to some extent. And I don't know that he's getting the credit for that side of things as well. So, again, injuries are a weird thing. The guy who, talking to NBA scouts, someone who has been brought up, not because they play similarly, because of the uncertainty, was Michael Porter Jr. a few years ago. Some teams wouldn't touch him because of his back. Some teams are willing to take the risk. The Nuggets ended up taking the risk, and we could sort of see in this year's run to the championship just how much of a beneficiary they are. So it depends on each team's risk, assessment and how much they're willing to tolerate.
42.9%. That's what Dariq Whitehead shot from 3 this year. So I'm sure a lot of teams see that, and they're also getting pretty excited about that. But moving on to Dereck Lively here, because he's someone who I think has just absolutely aced the draft process. People see the potential. They saw just the gravity he had on defense and what he was able to do. Do you think that he's one of those players that coaches just kind of like start, Birdman hand rub, getting excited about what they think they can teach him offensively?
Yeah, I honestly, I do. But if you're drafting this guy, you don't even need to turn on the offensive tape. Like that, anything he does offensively is gravy. The rim rolls, the lobs, running in transition. I do think that he has some shooting potential, and I don't know that a lot of people know this, but one of the reasons he had such a slow start to last season at Duke is because when he was in high school, he primarily played on the perimeter, which sounds wild if you're a high school coach not to have a 7'1" guy, sort of packing the paint and working in the post. But that's not how Lively played. So I do think he has some stretch potential. But no, I mean, this guy is he is a prototype for what you want on the defensive side of things at the NBA level, because he is a low usage, high efficiency offensive option. So you don't have to necessarily call anything for him. And he's going to do the things that you want him to do. He's going to rebound the ball. He lets you play any ball screen coverage you want. He can drop. He can switch. Duke switched him 1 through 5 this year. I don't know that he's going to quite be able to defend some of the, real athletic point guards in the league, but he does have the length to allow him to recover on some of those. So he can hedge. There is no limit to what you can do defensively with him. So especially for a defensive-minded coach or a team that's really, invested with its guards, runs a lot of ball screen actions, like he is exactly what you would want. And, I think about Mark Williams last year, another Duke center coming out. They're both great shot blockers, but Dereck is more athletic. He's more mobile, and in my opinion, probably has a higher upside.
Yeah, first one back, first one down for sure. Brandon Marks with The Athletic joining us here on 99.9 The Fan on the Heister Automotive Hotline. And Brandon, when we go back to the word fit, and you just mentioned, a good guard play, defensive set, and you say top 10. So of the top 10 teams that are picking tonight, and let's just push the first 3 out of the way right now. Spurs, we know who they're going with. Hornets and the Trailblazers have their own things going on. Of those remaining teams in the top 10, where does he slide in the best?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's probably not a guy who's going to go top 5 just because of the value of wings and guards. But once you start getting down to 8, 9, 10, could potentially he be a fit in Orlando next to Paolo Banchero? I mean, that would be
that's scary. That's scary.
Could he be a fit in Dallas? Could he be somebody who plays well with Luka? I think sort of the pipe dream for teams, outside of the lottery, that the one that, is so glaring, even in the wake of this Chris Paul trade, is the Warriors. I mean, can you imagine him just, being that defensive centerpiece? Him and Draymond Green together would be, Steve Kerr would be jumping for joy. So I think there's a lot of teams there. The 10th pick seems like, based on everything I've heard, it might be up for grabs. And if it is, I wouldn't at all be surprised if a team is trying to move up for him, because Lively is the type of center who can be a defensive cornerstone for your team for the next 6+ years. That's worth making a move up to go and get him.
Now, Brennan, I know we talked a lot about Duke, but you cover UNC and Duke. And while there may not be any Carolina guys who are going in the draft, Leaky Black, I remember, Hubert Davis talking about it last year. He said he had some NBA potential. What do you see happening with Leaky as the next few months go along in the NBA calendar?
Yeah, I would be very surprised if Leaky Black is not at least getting a summer league invite. I mean, I think what he showed defensively, and I've seen a lot of people the last couple of days talk about what he did against Brandon Miller out in Portland, holding Brandon Miller to 14 points on 21 shots. I mean, that was an incredible performance. And, for my money, I voted for him as ACC Defensive Player of the Year. I thought that he was one of the, 5 or so best defenders in all of college basketball this year. It's because he kind of like Lively, he's totally bought in on that end. He treats that like most players treat offense, and he has the size where he can realistically sort of switch up to every position except centers. He has the quickness, he's strong, and his positioning and his IQ is just really good. And I think one thing, a couple of years ago, like when he was a freshman, a sophomore, teams initially had some interest in him as a point guard prospect just because of the size and the passing and some ball handling. I don't know that he's a willing enough passer to sort of fit that mold, but as a ball-moving wing defender who could potentially evolve, it's going to depend on his three-point shot, but he has the other pieces there to make it fit. So he is on the older side, obviously, but to me, defensively, he absolutely merits being invited to Summer League. And then once you are there, they're adding a third, two-way deal for every NBA team this year. I think he's a prime candidate if he shows out in Summer League to potentially try and get one of those.
All right, Brandon Marks, The Athletic, here on 99.9 The Fan. Hey, Brandon, appreciate you, man, and enjoy the draft tonight.
Yes, absolutely. Appreciate you guys, and make sure that you guys keep playing some Cascada for Lewis.
Yeah, we'll make sure that happens. Oh, yeah.